But before I do, I would like to talk about the island of Great Britain. And this island, as you can see, it's located in Europe, in the northwestern corner. On this map. And this island, it may look like it's very luscious and green, but is not self-sufficient. This island, it needs to import 2/3 of its food in order for it to survive. And also for transportation, other than the island, since it was an island, they need to have ships to be able to go different places. And so, to import these goods, they needed trade ships, or merchant fleet. And this merchant fleet would go all over the world and create colonies in different places so they could send back imported goods to keep the country thriving. And to protect this merchant fleet, they needed strong military ships, which was the usual at that time, which was it had a wooden base with at least 3 or 4 masts and these sails, or canvas sails. And not only were these military ships used to protect the merchant fleet, they were also used to protect their own country, since, as I mentioned, this country is an island, and so it is threatened by being blockaded from all sides and being starved to death. And in creating these merchant fleets to survive and protecting it with military ships, they had total dominance of the seas. So during the colonial time period, there was a massive buildup of navy. And one of the things that was very interesting, it was the 2-power standard. And Britain, their goal was to have twice the economic and military might as both their enemies combined. So this helped them to stay stronger than everybody else and to become a European power. And in having dominance over all the different countries and the navies, and it helped in several wars. In the American Revolution, for instance, they were able to blockade they blockaded most of the southern coast of America, except they left the northern part of it open, since that was very useful trade to help the British economy. And there was minor victories by the Americans in this war, but the British like to think of it as it was just ship-to-ship fighting, but they were the most powerful. They still stayed that way. And another battle we studied is the Napoleonic Wars. And that was they were able to use their navy to blockade all of Europe and keep Napoleon from capturing England, which was Napoleon's goal in order to establish his great empire there. And one of the famous battles is the Battle of Trafalgar. And this battle was where Napoleon, he wanted to capture England in order to create his empire. And so what he did was he concentrated 100,000 troops on the French border of the English Channel. And in doing this, he needed barges to transport it across to England in order to invade. But he needed military ship protection. And so he had a combined fleet of Spanish and French ships. And the plan of that navy was during this time, there was a British Navy that was watching the Spanish and French Navy, which was in port. And in doing this, the plan of the Navy was to go down and to draw the British away into thinking that they were going to West Indies. And in doing that, they would come back up and they would go and help the barges and protect them on the invasion. But it did not work. The British Admiral Nelson, he guessed what they were going to do, and when the French and Spanish fleet came up, they were defeated at the Battle of Trafalgar, which is on a peninsula in Spain. And that was a major victory for Britain in having total dominance of the ocean. And in having such a grand and powerful fleet, they used it for race for colonies. During this time and before, they had different explorers, they sent out different explorers to seek out new lands, riches, and be able to import goods. And so I will talk about 2 explorers, and the first one being Drake, who was a little earlier. And I will talk about 3 voyages, and they were mostly against Spain, since during the 1500s, Spain was the most powerful country during this time. And these 3 voyages are from 1570 to 1577. And they were mainly trips to the West Indies, where they tried to establish a colony there in order to get all those riches. And in doing this, he raided several Spanish cities during that time, and he pirated the Spanish ships as well, because during that time they had what was called the Spanish. There were several ships that their sole purpose was to get gold from the New World. And on his third trip, he sacked Nombre de Dios, which was a Spanish city. And this was an Atlantic depot where the Spanish stored all their gold and silver from the Pacific coastlines. And that was they sent that back to Great Britain, and that was telling the Spanish that they meant business. And then in 1577, Drake took the Golden Line, and he took it down through South America and through the Strait of Magellan. And when I talked about the city of Nombre de Dios, this city, he went across. This was in South America, on the eastern side of South America. And in capturing that city, he went across, and he was able to see the Pacific Ocean. And in seeing that, he decided that he would be the first English sailor to be in the Pacific Ocean. So on his next expedition, he went down through the Strait of Magellan and came up. And in that, he took Puerto, another Spanish city, which was the richest prize in history. And thus, he was the first English ship in the Pacific Ocean. And this added a great prestige to the British crown. And after all these expeditions, he had several more, but he went back and helped to defeat the Spanish Armada, which was sent by Philip II of Spain to capture England, which was having insurrections against them. So in doing that, Britain was able to have added more power, and they became more dominant of the seas. And then the other is Cook, the other explorer. And he was sent out by Great Britain to explore riches and fame for them. Oh, and I forgot to mention that this was Drake's voyage. And also this is a map during the time that he created of the known world at that time. And Cook, he was to explore riches and fame for Great Britain. And in doing so, he went everywhere around the world. He was the first known European to land on Australia, New Zealand, Hawaii, and Canada. And in doing so, he established them as British colonies, which greatly increased the might of Great Britain. And their powerful navy, and acquiring so many colonies throughout these explorers, they needed the navy to protect their colonies, since they were so spread out in different areas. And in doing so, in order to have control, they established several ports or bases. And these bases, they would put them like along the coastline, and they would equip and arm ships and hire men to serve for the British Navy. And the most famous of these being Gibraltar, which is on the peninsula jutting out, and that was one of the main bases for moving in Spain, or able to control the Mediterranean Sea. And the British Navy, it greatly helped to increase the British power and dominance. Even though they were a small island and one of the smaller countries in Europe, they were able to greatly become very powerful. And this map right here is the map of Great Britain's colonies at its height.